2.1. Calculate the median value for the GNI data in figure 5. So what we've got is a list of countries and their GNI per person values. So GNI is just the value of everything that's made in that country in a year, plus all the profits from companies abroad. So the median value is the one in the middle. So you've got a bit of space for your working. So ideally, you need to rank these countries from the lowest GNI, write them down all the way until you've got the richest one. And then the median value would be the 6th country in the list. So it should work out that you spent around about 2 minutes on this question getting the median answer, which is from Argentina, which is 11,960. Question 2.2 suggests one reason why the GNI per person varies between the countries shown in figure 5 for 1 mark. So basically, why is it that all these countries have different GNI per person values? Looking at the mark scheme, it actually gives marks just by saying something as basic as some of the countries in that list are poor, for instance, Kenya. And what I'd be inclined to do is to maybe just give a reason why. So, for instance, countries can be poor for physical reasons. For example, their climate is too hot or too dry or too wet. There could be historical reasons such as colonialism. There could be political issues. Maybe they don't have trading partnerships. So I'm being inclined, obviously, to use the figure, suggest one of those countries, give the figure for their GNI, and then the reason why they are poor. 2.3. Give one disadvantage of using an economic measure of development such as GNI. So basically, why might it be a bad thing just to look at how much money a country has got? There's two very common answers here. First of all, if we look at GNI or GDP, the value it gives is just an average. So if you've got lots and lots of millionaires and billionaires, that might skew the data, so it hides the fact that you might have loads and loads of people that are really, really poor. Also, okay, a country might have a lot of money, but it doesn't factor in what the government does with that money. It doesn't really tell us anything about the quality of life. So the government might have money, but are they spending it on hospitals so people can live long? Are they spending it on schools so people can read and write? So it's all those sort of social factors that if you just measure the economy and money, it doesn't factor in. 2.4. Using figure 6 and your own understanding suggests how the growth of tourism in an LIC or NEE might help to reduce the development gap. So the development gap is the term we call for having rich countries on one side and poor countries on the other. So basically, how can tourism be used to get the LICs and the NEEs to develop them into better countries? So we've got to use the figure and our own understanding, which will be our Tunisia case study. So we've just got to suggest how tourism has helped to bring more money to the country. So all we've got to do from this figure is just maybe state a few words or just one of those facts, and then you can link that into our case study as well. But there's got to be some reference of this. So, for instance, in Tunisia, there are lots of positives. People come to Tunisia because of the climate is really good, the weather's great. They've got some fantastic physical geography. They've got Mediterranean beaches, they've got mountains, they've got the Sahara Desert. So in terms of the positives, as it suggests on the figure as well, it employs a lot of people, the tourism industry. So people can be employed in places like hotels, but then the key to it is the multiplier effect. It's not just those, but it's people who supply the hotels, their business will improve. People that drive taxis and buses, they will also improve because they're going to get more custom as a result. You might also talk about, and this is certainly true in the Tunisia's case, that because people are coming in from other countries, their sort of culture is also starting to affect Tunisia's. So, for instance, schooling for girls has now become compulsory. They have to do it just because of that cultural infusion from other countries. And Tunisia are now starting to develop. So it's not just actually the money, but also their way of thinking and the role of particularly women. But as long as you reference the figure and develop your points about jobs and taxes and the multiplier effect, that should be plenty for the marks. 2.5. State 2 challenges faced by the people living in the area described in Figure 7. So, Figure 7, we've got a photograph and a bit of explanation about bicycle ambulances. Now, as the question suggests, you've got to see a challenge either in this picture or in the text, because it says as described in Figure 7. So, all we've simply got to do for this question is just find two problems in this area and write them down. It's as simple as that. So, for instance, you could say that they've only got 2 small health centres serving 45,000 people. You might do a bit of a calculation that 1 health centre serves 22,500 people. You could say 1 in 6 women die in childbirth. You could say that people have to travel a long distance to see doctors and nurses. So as long as you pick out 2 of those challenges, write them down, 2 marks. 0.6. State 1 characteristic of something called intermediate technology. Now, if we just scroll up, these ambulance bikes are an example of intermediate technology. Now, we can't argue that these are the best things that we can do to help these people, because we can just buy them ambulances. But the key characteristic of the intermediate technology is it is something that people know how to use, or will be able to use it with little or no training. It is cheap, so it can be bought in numbers, and also perhaps the idea is that it will involve the local community, so they'll all come together and help maintain it so it lasts a long time. So all these different things are a characteristic of intermediate technology. 2.7. Outline one way in which international aid has had an impact on a named LIC or NEE country. So international aid is something that's given from one country to another. And remember, paper 2, section B, if it asks for a named country, you should sort of automatically try and remember Nigeria. If we start there then, Nigeria from 2009 to 2013 received 60 million mosquito nets in aid. This was given by the United States and a global organisation called the World Bank. This obviously saved many people's lives, so you can link that point in. So you might use a key term like there was a reduction in the death rate or infant mortality. You don't necessarily have to use Nigeria. Potentially you could use the example of the Democratic Republic of Congo and their president Mobutu, who asked the World Bank for $4 billion of aid to improve his country, but obviously he decided that that money would be better spent on him building palaces in jungles, buying Mercedes-Benz cars, and taking shopping trips to Paris. So ideally, probably best focus on Nigeria, but either of those 2 answers will be fine for 2 marks. 8. Using a case study of an LIC or NEE country, explain the link between transnational corporations or TNCs and industrial development in the country. So our case study is Nigeria. The global company that's there is the energy firm called Shell. So we're going to have to explain what Shell are doing there and the impact that has had. So in terms of the importance of oil, 75% of Nigeria's economy is based on it, and most of the oil is found in and around the Niger River. So you can talk about the positives. It provides lots of jobs. A lot of the contracts that Shell give out are to local companies as well. So again, the key term that keeps coming up is the multiplier effect. Lots of businesses are also developing. A lot of these businesses are local to Nigeria. And by getting oil out of the ground, Shell paid the Nigerian government over $1 billion worth of tax in 2016, which the government can then use to invest in other parts of the country, improving the infrastructure, the schools, the hospitals, etc., etc. There is no real need to talk about the negatives, as the question doesn't sort of lend itself to a balanced argument. But I think for 6 markers, I always think it's good practice if you do. So you could say, okay, well, the country has developed, there's lots more jobs and money have been provided. However, the Nigerian government is also having to pay for the cleanup operation because there's been quite a lot of oil spills when the oil is being taken out of the ground. You can reference places like Bodo, which is a small town in Nigeria. They used to all be fishermen, but because of these oil spills, these fishermen can't make any money. So as a result, yes, it is developing the country, but it could be doing more because it is also hampering them as well. 9. Using figure 8, calculate the mean planned spending per person per year from 2016 to 2021 in the 9 English regions. So it's a 2-mark question, so they're expecting you to spend about 2 minutes on this. What you basically got is the different regions of England and how much money is going to be spent in investment in that area. So we're just after the mean spend. So we've got to add all of these up. So add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Add up all of those 9, divide by 9, and the answer that you should come out with is £484.78. 2.10. Assess the importance of transport improvements to the UK economy. Okay, so it's the 9 marker where we've got to basically say how important or how good it is that transport in the UK has improved, and we've got to try and link it to money the best we can as well. I'll be looking at this and I'll be thinking about 3 different things that have improved, and then I'll be trying to discuss whether they are really that important or not. So one of the first things is high-speed rail. Basically trying to cut the journey times from Birmingham to London. Now, this in itself will cost an estimated £40 billion. So automatically you can say, well, that is a lot of money, and a lot of that comes from people paying taxes all around the country, whereas the benefit will only really be for the people around sort of Birmingham and London, so whether that is worth it. However, the idea being, if we get a track with loads of fast trains on, more people are likely to want to use them, and therefore there'll be less cars on the road. So you could argue that's really good because people stuck in traffic jams, obviously being late for work, costs companies loads of money, roughly £20 billion every year, just because meetings have to be delayed or cancelled, or deliveries don't turn up on time. You could talk about maybe the growth and the expansion of Heathrow Airport down in London, the idea that they want to build a 3rd runway. Again, you could say that that's really good because by building a new runway, you're going to create a lot of short-term jobs for the people actually building the terminal on the runway. But you could argue, well, it's still only going to benefit London. And the problem in the UK, and this is the key term, we've got a big north-south divide. They could say that, okay, yes, that'd be important. We might get more tourists, things like that in the south if we've got a 3rd runway. But maybe it'd be better expanding an airport in the north, for instance, Manchester Airport. Finally, we might talk about the big port again in London. It's called the Thames Gateway. And the idea being that we can trade a lot more, particularly with these huge container ships now. They can come into London because this dock is really big and it's really deep. So they can come in so we can import and export goods to other places. And that'll hopefully bring the economy, boost the economy further. So all of those things you would probably need to discuss, or at least two of them, as long as you make sure you assess the importance. So basically there is a balanced argument of, yes, actually these things are really good, but are they going to matter that much? They're going to cost a lot in the first place. But also I think it would be a really clever argument to say that a lot of these will only help people in the south of England, not the north. So that sort of evaluation would be great if you're going for 7, 8 or 9 out of 9.